Alright, let's see here. Alright, so let's see what happened last chapter. Do you remember? What does it say? So what are some new things we learned? What does it say? What do we write down? New facts we learned.
English?
What new characters did we get?
The roly-poly bird?
And how many fingers did we say it had?
55.
That's a lot, isn't it? So we said it probably looked like that. So we know that it's in England. We're dealing with a bird. So based on, what is this chapter called?
No, still no bird pie.
So based on the chapter name alone, what do you think is going to happen?
They want to eat their bird pie.
Yep, and do you think that the bird's going to let Mr. Twit outsmart him?
No, because you can see here, he's taking the cage.
Oh, yeah. So
and the roly-poly is going to say, no, don't get in there. It has sticky glue.
Yeah, it does. So why don't we're going to read this. While you're reading, I want you to write down on this piece of paper key details from it so that we know what we can add to the story chain so that someone who hasn't read the book can go to the story chain and know exactly what's going on. Sound good? So have your pen ready. And as you go, you can pause and write down key stuff that... write down stuff that you think is important. Here's a pen.
Still no bird pie for Mr. Twit. Mr. Twit was going to leave for another week. His bird pie for supper. He loved bird pie. It was his favorite meal. So that very same day, he went after bird again. This time, he
smeared
all.
Do you know what that word means?
Like,
if you say
you
wipe your
glue and you just you wanna take the glue off, you just
smear it. So kind of like rub it off. So do you think you should write that down because we learned a new word? And you can look to see how to spell it. Good job. That's a big word to know. All right.
All the top bars of monkey cage were sticky glue, as branches of the dead big tree. Now I'll get you, said. I'll get you, said.
He said.
The dead tree.
No,
the big dead trees.
No, you're right here. Whichever one
you sit on, the monkey crouched
means like he kind of huddled in
inside the cage, watching all this. And later on, when the roly-poly bird came swooping in,
for an evening chat,
for shout out.
It says they shouted out.
Don't land on our cage, roly-poly bird. It's covered with sticky glue. So the tree.
Alright, so let's stop there. So what's happened so far? What key stuff? So what's Mr. Twit's plan to catch the bird? What did he put on the cage? Do you remember?
Sticky glue.
Right, so what could we write there? So that's something important, right? Because that's his plan to catch it. So what should we write there?
Mr. Twit put sticky glue on
the cage.
To
do what?
The dead tree. To get
the
bird pie.
So you can write that. You can write Mr. Twit put glue on the cage.
This is MR.
MR period. And what but the T's capital Y. Because it's his name, right? Mr. Twit. Mr. Twit. Yep, there you go. Good job.
Oh,
Mr. Twit
twits.
put glue. Where did we say he put that glue? On where? It says don't land on our
cage.
Yep. So when you're asked reading comprehension in school, what can you also do? Look back to the text for answers, right? Good job. All right. So now we can keep.
Monkey cage.
Well, we've read the book, so we'll know it's monkey cage, right? So we're right here. And you're right here.
And that evening, as the sun went down, and all the birds came in again to roost, the roly-poly flew around and around the monkey bird cage. The big dad tree singing out his warning. There's sticky glue stuff now on the cage and on the tree. If you land or either you'll never get free. So fly away, stay up high, or you'll finish up tomorrow's in a hot bird pie.
Right, so if these two words sound the same, what's that called again? Two words sound the same, like hi, bye. Like rhyme, right? So he made a song about how he's going to get caught, right? So we have smeared, we learned that new word, that Mr. Twit put glue on the cage. So let's get our construction paper out. Red or blue today?
Red.
All right.
I'll give you the scissors. Looking at my own eye.
Let's remember, we gotta cut it this way because
where's the, what do you call it, ruler? And I can just like do it. Oh, they have two.
So can you have normal Chips Ahoy?
There.
Like normal Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookies? So what kind of chocolate chip cookies can you give us?
Alright. Looks good to me. Let's cut away.
What is this?
I think it's just for like kids' safety, but you don't need that, so I would just cut it normally. Alright, so we can write here some markers so it's not as boring. So we can write a new word. You can pick your color. So what was our new word?
You're gonna be me, and I'm gonna be you, and I want you to teach me how to add subtract fractions of common words.
Alright, and what did we say that means? To like
Rub it?
Yep, so like kind of rub in. It's usually used in more like messy sense, but
R-U-B-E?
R-U-B, rub, just R-U-B. If you put that E, it'd be rube.
To make the right denominators.
Rub it.
To rub it in, like rub it in somewhere. Alright, and then, so what was the main event? Mr. Twit put what on the cage? What'd you say here?
Mr. Twit put sticky glue in there.
Yep, so we can write that.
They're like sugar cookies, and they have like chocolates on them, with peanut butter on them. Can you eat those cookies? You can?
So when you're reading in class, be sure you can have your own little notebook and write down key events because you're really good at once you have it in front of you going back to it, so that's good. So then, like we did last week, we're going to use these details and draw our own picture. So let's draw, what do you think is important? He made a song, so you could always write and what you could write the tree, the cage, the bird, you can choose.
So besides that, when do you have PE? In the morning or afternoon? All the way to snare like in the middle of the day? It's like after lunch? Together?
Once we're done making our cookies, would you like one?
How was your orchestra concert last week?
Yeah.
Their dough with
Solos?
dough cookie. Oh, dough cookie.
Is that the cage?
Yeah, it's like the paintbrush.
Oh yeah, duh. That's good.
It's the sticky floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I could try to draw.
So would you say the author did a good job of including details that you could use to draw the story, or could he have put more in?
I could have drawn a tree, and the
It's
tree
okay,
didn't
look.
have leaves.
It's okay. Yep, exactly. So you knew it was dead, so would you say the author did use enough details for you to draw your own picture or no?
It just said dead.
Yeah, so it was kind of short. So we were able to draw a tree, but we didn't know what color the tree was. We didn't know.
It's just brown because it has no leaves, and it's just old.
Exactly. So when we wrote our story about Halloween, we did use details, right? So what would you say is more effective in writing a story? Giving the reader, do you like reading a book that has a lot of details about colors and setting? Or do you like short little chapters with not a lot of detail? Yeah, I figured you would say that. But if we're trying to create our own ending, we have to make sure we include a lot of details. So next we're going to glue it. Look how big this has got.
How do you?
Alrighty, here you go, your favorite part. Oh, we almost forgot the most important part. What chapter? What chapter was this?
Chapter.
I think you said it earlier. 20.
Staple.
Remember, the staple was not working. Me and you did not do well with the stapling.
Oh, because it was too pretty.
Oh, you need good glue. Alright, do we have a good glue or bad glue this week? Oh, you got lucky.
Kinda-ish. Kinda. It's almost gonna be bad.
Kinda, that's a good solid glue gun.
You're right.
You gotta put it through here first, silly.
Oh. This. Because this one has Which side did we use?
I made sure this is the chapter one.
No, but which side? Do we use the skinny side? Like,
Oh no, we did the right one this time. Alright, so we got all. So now what we're gonna do is, for the next chapter, we're gonna read it, and then we're gonna write a different ending that we think we could have made based on what we read. Okay? So I'll read this one. But as I go, remember, I want you to write down. What did we do? Write down important stuff. Alright? So this one's called Mr. and Mrs. Twit Go Off to Buy Guns. The next morning, when Mr. Twit came out with his huge basket, not a single bird was sitting on either the monkey cage or the big dead tree. They were all perched happily on the roof of Mr. Twit's house. Alright, so let's stop there. Do you know what perched means?
Yeah.
It means like sitting high and mighty, like just sitting high, happy as can be. So that's a word we can write. Perched. Purred. So P-E-R-C-H-E-D. So it means to like sit up tall in this context. So they were sitting up tall on the roof of Mr. Twit's house. The roly-poly bird was up there as well, and the monkeys were in the cage, and all of them together were roaring with laughter at Mr. Twit. Why do you think they'd be laughing at Mr. Twit? Yeah. So they're laughing at him because he tried to catch him and it didn't work, right? They were smarter. Can you imagine a bird being smarter than you?
Yeah, my ear was a little bit covered.
Yeah.
And then it turned back to normal, and then when it turned back to normal, it just started to be loud.
Alright, so I'll wipe that silly laugh off your beaks, Mr. Twit screamed at the birds. I'll get you next time, you filthy, feathery frumps. I'll wring your necks, all of you, and have you bubbling in the pot for bird pie before today is over. How are you going to do that? Asked Mrs. Twit, who had come outside to see what all the noise was about. I won't have you smearing sticky glue all over the roof of our house. Mr. Twit went very close to Mrs. Twit and lowered his voice so that neither the birds nor the monkeys could hear. I've got a great idea, he said. We'll both go into town right away and we'll buy a gun each. How's that? So why do you think they'd want a gun?
Kill the bird, and then the bird dies, and then so
they can get to pie? Brilliant, cried Mrs. Twit, grinning and showing her long yellow teeth. We'll buy those big shotguns that spray out 50 bullets or more with each bang.
It looks like we might finish.
Exactly, said Mr. Twit. Lock up the house while I go and make sure the monkeys are safely shut away. Mr. Twit went over to the bird cage. Attention, he barked in his fearsome voice. Upside down, all of you, and jump to it, one on top of the other. Quick, get on with it, or you'll feel Mrs. Twit's stick across your back. Obediently, the poor monkeys stood on their hands and clambered one on top of the other, with Mugglewump at the bottom and the smallest child at the very top. Have you ever gotten on your sister's shoulders or anything before?
Like a top.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you probably couldn't carry her. She's a lot older than you.
Well, she picked me up.
Yeah. Now stay there till we come back, Mr. Twit ordered. Don't you dare to move. And don't overbalance. When we return in 2 to 3 hours, I shall expect to find you all in exactly the same position as you are now.
I actually did that before.
You understand?
For like a little baby.
Right, when you were little?
No, I didn't do it. I just did it for like a couple weeks because me and my best friend were with her nephew.
Right.
And when he was Super Bowl, we had to entertain him.
I see. Well, that's a good connection. With that, Mr. Twit marched away. Mrs. Twit went with him, and the monkeys were left alone with the birds. So this is actually a perfect chapter to do our own ending. So the monkeys are locked up. Mr. and Mrs. Twit are going to get a gun. So if you had to write your own ending, kind of also mixing in with predicting, what would you say happens in your own ending? What would you say?
For this chapter?
Yeah. So if you could have your own ending based on what we read, like we said, we know the birds are on top of the house. Mr. Twit is not happy about it. So they're going to get guns. So what do you think, what would you say in your own ending? Well, first, let's do a prediction. What do you think is going to happen?
Mr. Twit wants to eat his bird.
Yep, so we can write that down. Mr. Twit wants to shoot the birds. Birds, yep. So then, now we're going to draw a nice little squiggly, and we're going to do our own ending. So in your own ending, what would happen? So let's make our own ending. We're off to the store to get guns, and then what happens?
The monkey sees the roly-polies.
So we could say, let's make our own ending. Roly-poly helps the monkeys escape. So how would they do that? What's one way he could help them escape?
Opening a key.
Yeah, he could fly the key to them. That's a good one. applies the key to them and they open the cage. And then where do they go?
In a home.
Mm-hmm.
Or probably
So they
get revenge.
Yeah, we could say they'll go in a nice home that takes care of them, and they plot their own revenge. So we can write, they want to get back at Mr. and Mrs. Twit.
Something else. Did you have a good lunch? Oh, really? Did you have a good lunch? No. Did you get a good grade? Oh, Kristen.
Alrighty, so then what we're going to do now is we're going to add to our story chain, and we're going to do one strip based on the real ending and one strip based on the ending we wrote. And we're going to just attach them like next to each other. Alright, so here's the one that actually happened. So we're going to write chapter 21 real. Alright.
So what do I write?
So we're going to write what we've been doing. What happened in the real chapter.
We're gonna write them.
Yep, so we could draw them in a car, going to the store.
What if they don't have a car?
We'll pretend they do. We'll use our imaginations.
But your only project you're going to put out of my week this week is you on Tuesday and today and doing my other kids today. I went to elementary school. And you say no, I didn't know. Okay, I'll just get this. All right, can I pause this?
Everything that happened here.
Oh,
I was trying to do this.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to take anything back.
And I was like trying to write on there without it being like dumb. And I'm pretty sure I got like 50 on that.
Was it because you didn't know the material because you couldn't write?
I don't know what to do.
And like this guy had like half stuff on his paper filled out, and then he had people on his paper, and I thought he was going to come and help me. And my teacher was and I was my section.
Looks like a map.
I think it looks great.
Does it look like a gun with the eyelashes right here?
Kinda.
Really cool. Okay, then get this wrong way.
Oh wow, did that by yourself.
Is that it? Is it there?
No,